The first unit of speech we're going to talk about is actually a phrase, which is a group of words, and we are going to look at and talk about prepositional phrases. A prepositional phrase is a group of words. It starts with a preposition, it ends with a noun or a pronoun, which is called the object of the preposition, and the phrase as a whole demonstrates a relationship within a sentence. On this page you'll see the same thing that you have in your packet, which is a list of commonly used prepositions. What I want you to do in your packet right now, I'll explain a little later, is mark some of these words that can serve double duty, depending on the context that we see them in a sentence. So for now, just mark them. We'll talk about them later. Before, after, until, since. I'll mark all of those. There are some others, but let's just mark those for now. And then finally, I want you in a different color to circle the word to, because that's one that really comes up a lot. We'll talk about it a little later, but for now, just mark them. Here are some more prepositions. These are called compound prepositions, clearly because they have more than one word. They're a little harder to remember, but I wanted you to see them and remember that these two also serve the same function as a regular preposition. They are also on your chart, and you will want to remember these as well. Now let's take a look at some prepositional phrases in context of sentences. We have some examples on this page, some with simple prepositional phrases and some with compound prepositions in the prepositional phrase. So the first example, the dog strolled down the street. Down is the preposition, street is the object of the preposition. For a cat, preposition, object of preposition. And the second sentence, the prepositional phrases are marked for you in parentheses. And something to think about is that the sooner you can identify prepositions and the more quickly you can locate them in sentences, the easier the rest of this unit is going to be. So if you know prepositions and can identify them, that's fantastic. If you don't know them, you need to get started memorizing them right now. I cannot stress enough how much easier the unit will be if you can recognize prepositional phrases in all of the units to come this year. Prepositional phrases are the things that stick kids and kind of get them stuck as we move into later units. So it's really important that you can complete this aspect of grammar successfully so that you can do the rest of it with a little more ease. The last example sentence is, because of the weather, the football game was played in front of a small crowd. We have compound prepositions in these phrases, and if you were asked in a quiz to mark them, I would want you to identify both of these words as the preposition. And the same with the second phrase, in front of. The entire thing is a preposition. So just something to be aware of for quizzing. Another thing to know about prepositional phrases is that they can appear anywhere in a sentence. After practice, I jumped on my bike and headed toward home. We have 3 prepositional phrases in that sentence, beginning, middle, and end. No problem. They can also have modifiers within the phrase itself. So we have a more complex looking sentence here, but it's really just more sophisticated. It's not actually a complex sentence. After the long, exhausting practice, that whole thing is one prepositional phrase. After is still the recognizable preposition. Practice is still the noun ending the prepositional phrase. And then we have some adjectives here, which we'll talk about later, describing the practice. So they're describing that noun, and that's okay. Prepositional phrases can contain modifiers. I jumped on my brand new yellow racing bike. We have a whole bunch of modifiers in this sentence, or in this phrase, sorry, modifying bike, which is the object of the preposition, and headed toward my best friend's home. Again, we have toward as the preposition and home as the object of the preposition, with these extra modifiers in the middle. That is normal, and you probably write a lot more like this than you do like the sentence in the previous slide. Now we're going to go back and revisit those words I had you circle and mark on your packet. There are a couple of things you want to be careful of when you look for prepositional phrases and sentences, and this is why you have to pay attention to the sentence itself. You can't just look for words. You have to think as you do this. And the first one is the preposition to. And remember that the rule of prepositions is that they are a noun or a preposition followed by a noun or a pronoun. So in this first example, we have to, and we have our noun or pronoun, which is lakes. So there's a regular old ordinary preposition. The second example, I also have the word to, but it's followed by a verb. And this is called an infinitive phrase. It's a verbal phrase. We'll get to it in a later unit. But for now, the most important thing for you to remember is that if we have the word to followed by a verb, which eat is, then this is not a prepositional phrase. It's something else. And what I'd like you to do in your sentences, just so you don't make a careless mistake with them, is mark those with square brackets like this. So if you see the word to followed by a verb, it's an infinitive, not a prepositional phrase, and I want you to mark them in square brackets so you don't get confused. The other words I had you mark, after, before, since, until, I want you to pay attention to what comes after them. If it's a noun plus a preposition plus a noun or pronoun, we have a prepositional phrase. But if it's one of those words followed by a noun and a verb, or like a sentence, now you have something else, and it is not functioning as a preposition anymore. So you want to be careful. As we go through this, it will start to make more sense to you, but for now, just know that if you see those words, you want to pay close attention. All right, let's do a little bit of practice together here. In your packet, you have this same group of sentences on the bottom of the first page. And so take a peek at them, see what you can do, and I will mark them while you work on your packet. Okay, so I just marked these sentences, and all of them are identified with a preposition. The object of preposition is a noun. There are some modifiers in some of the phrases, but what I really want you to take a peek at is that last sentence. We wanted to swim to the island. We have the word to in there twice. We have one time where it's to the island, where it's ended with a noun, and we have another time where it's to swim, where it ends with a verb. Because it ends with a verb, we have an infinitive phrase here. It is not a prepositional phrase, so we're going to mark it in square brackets and not make that mistake. The sooner you memorize these prepositions, the easier this task will be. And I can tell you from experience, watching other kids go through this, the kids who don't learn the prepositions and can't identify them in sentences struggle a whole lot more on the subsequent units. So it's best to just put the time in now and get it figured out as soon as you can. A few things for you to remember from this video. Prepositional phrases create relationships in sentences. They always start with a preposition, they always end with a noun or a pronoun, and they can also include modifiers. Also, the sooner you memorize them or can identify them in sentences, the easier everything is going to be. I promise you that this is true. A few more things to remember. Prepositional phrases can appear anywhere in a sentence. We will be identifying them with parentheses in all the work that we do. And the last thing that I didn't talk about much, but that we'll cover when we get into our next topic, is that the simple subject and the verb phrase will never be part of a prepositional phrase. That's why we mark them first, so we don't make errors when we're trying to find the root of the sentence later on. So for now, all you need to know is that you mark prepositional phrases, but kind of plug that somewhere in the back of your memory so that when we get to subjects and verbs, you'll remember why we do prepositional phrases first. Finally, there's a little bit of bonus information here. If your brain is full, put an X through it, don't worry about it. If not, it's kind of nice to have a little bit more context. Prepositional phrases, once you put the parentheses around them, become a single unit of speech. They're either adverbs or adjectives, telling us which one, what kind, how many, how much, or where, when, why, or to what extent. Too much information? Go to your grammar happy place, ignore the last 10 seconds of this video. Hooray, you've made it through a video. If you still have questions, go back and review concepts that weren't clear to you. Come and see me before school in 2418 or send me a message on Schoology. Better yet, check in with your classmates. They may be able to help you with something in a way that makes a lot of sense to you. Use the resources you have available to you. It'll be a great asset as you go through school. We'll see you soon.